right. Hi, Seattle Unity. This is Sean Bendickson and my son, what's your name?
Sealy.
This is Sealy. And you are how old?
7.
And you are in what grade?
2nd grade.
2nd grade. And we just want to wish you a Happy Father's Day. And I'm going to share some songs in honor of Father's Day for you. We hope you enjoy them. Down among the reeds and rushes, a baby boy was found. His eyes as clear as centuries, his silky hair was brown. And he's never been lonely, never been lied to, never had to scuffle in fear, nothing denied to. Born at the instant, church bells chime, the whole world whispering he was born at the right time. Me and my buddies, we all traveling people. We like to go down the restaurant road. We spend our Euro dollars all the way from Washington to Tokyo. And I see them in the airport lounging upon their mother's breast. They follow me with open eyes, they're uninvited guests. And never been lonely, never been lied to, never had a scuffle in tears, nothing denied to. Born at the instant, church bells chime, the whole world whispering, born at the right time. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, oh, yeah. Too many people on the bus from the airport, too many holes in the crust of the earth. The planet grows every time it registers another bird. But down among the reeds and rushes, a baby girl was found. Her eyes as clear as centuries, her silky hair was brown. And she's never been lonely, never been lied to, never had to scuffle in fear, nothing denied to. Born at the instant, church bells chime, the whole world whispering she was born at the right time. Never been lonely, never been lied to, never had to scuffle in fear, nothing denied to. Born at the instant, church bells chime, the whole world whispering they were born at the right time.
Welcome to Seattle Unity's online Sunday service. My name is Reverend Karen Lindvig. Thank you for being with us today and for joining us, and I want to wish you all a very happy Father's Day. So as we always do, let's just begin by invoking the presence, the power, and the activity of God. So let us pray. There is but one presence and one power in my life and in the universe. God the good, omnipotence. And so I invite you to breathe in this awareness, to allow it to just fill your being, and we recognize that then goodness goes out also into the world. And we are so grateful. Amen. So now I invite you to enjoy our Father's Day slideshow with the faces of the men in our community and the many fathers who are related to our community that was put together by Aaron.
My heart is filled with love for you. My heart is filled with love for you. My heart is filled with love the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. Why have you come to earth? Do you remember? Why have you taken birth? Why have you come to love, serve and remember? To love, serve and remember. Love. Why have you come to earth? Why have you come to earth? Do you remember? Why have you taken birth? Why have you come? Why have you come? To love, serve and remember. To love, serve and remember. To love, serve and remember. To love, serve and remember.
I remember saying I carry the weight. And just as long as he or she is healthy, I'm okay. Then the doctor pointed to the corner of the screen. He said, that thing right there, well, you know what that means. I started wondering who he was gonna be. Heaven help us if he's anything like me. Probably climb a tree too tall and ride his bike too fast. End up every summer wearing something in a cast. He's gonna throw a ball and break some glass. Window down the street. He's gonna get in trouble and we're gonna get in fights. Gonna lose my temper and some sleep. Safe to say that I'm gonna get my payback if he is anything like me. I can see him right now, knees all skinned up, with a magnifying glass trying to melt a Tonka truck. Won't he be a sight with his band uniform on? That'll be his first love till his first love comes along. He'll get his heart broke by the time he's in his teens. Heaven help us if he's anything like me. Probably stay up too late and drive his car too fast. Get a speeding ticket, he'll pay for mowing grass. Get caught skipping class, be grounded for a week. Gonna get in trouble and we're gonna get in fights. Gonna lose my temper and some sleep. Safe to say that I'm gonna get my payback if he's anything like me. He's gonna love me and hate me along the way. The years are gonna fly by. Can already dread the day. He's gonna kiss his mama. He's gonna shake my hand. He's gonna act like he can't wait to leave. As he drives out, he'll cry his eyes out if he's anything like me. Worst folks to be like, he'll be alright if he's anything like me.
Happy Father's Day 2020. Thank you for joining us again this morning. So normally we have a few men in our congregation speak from the pulpit on Father's Day to share their stories. And today is no different, except you'll be hearing from 3 members of our community who are in their homes. And they are Tracy Cobbin, Karl Tegtmeyer, and George Edwards. Not necessarily in that order. So I invite you to just open your hearts and hear the wisdom of these wise men. I would like to introduce to you Tracy Cobbin, who is going to be sharing his experience and wisdom in being a father and a grandfather. So Tracy, I know we talked earlier, but tell us how many children you have, because I know you're a parent, a step parent, and a grandparent. So
Um,
how many have you got?
three children. As I said earlier, that I had my son as a single father at one time, and then when I met Jana, we combined our families. So three kids. People always ask, how many kids you have? Like three, because they all were at the age where my son was 10, Michael was 9, and Casey was 8 when Jana and I met. So three children.
And how many grandchildren?
Ew, I have to count those. See, 1, 2, 3, 4 grandchildren.
And so you're in a blended family. How long have you been married?
I'll be coming up on 24 years this September.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's been like the biggest surprise in being a parent that you like didn't expect?
Biggest surprise. I think one of the issues that came about is that, we've heard it, different versions of it, is that do we parent like our parents parented us? And of course, becoming a parent, I was the first in my age group, in my circle of friends, to have a son. I was 27 when my son was born. And his birth mom and I, we never married. It was never even a thought at the time, but I was a single dad for the first couple of years. And we parent kind of like parent that we were parent until we learned that time and era and things shift. It's a different scenario. And being a single dad at the time, from the time he got up to the time we went and picked him up and working, I was doing it consistently. But one of the things that I say that I did learn is that the style of parenting that I grew up with my parents being part of the Depression style, it's like, don't do like I do like I say, changed my model of parenting as continually as, I became a father and worked with them.
So what does the word father mean to you?
It's a good question. Well, if I think about me and my dad, I thought, he was a veteran, served in Korea, originally from Ohio. And, I thought this guy was huge, like big picture of him, I don't like we used to think about a John Wayne or any of your stars, and whatnot admired, I didn't think it was anything he couldn't do, almost invincible. So that connection between son and his father, and how I thought about my dad, with, like I said, it was nothing that I thought he couldn't do. And him being a veteran and being part of the country he grew up, he was the youngest out of 5, youngest brother, served in Korea, boxed while he was in that lifestyle. But, as far as his attitude and things like that, there was no gray area. It was either black or white. You either were doing what you were supposed to do or you weren't, and, a lot of things he taught me about as I grew up, opportunity or choices in life. What side of the fence do you want to be on, Tracy? If you want to work hard and go in a direction you want to go in, which was nice for my parents, because I was floating into the direction of sales and marketing before I really even knew it. He never discouraged me in anything that I wanted to do. He's, oh, you should go this way or that way. So he kind of let me be who I wanted to be, within reason.
Is he still alive?
No, unfortunately, he had cancer and passed away about 2005. Yep.
So what part of him lives through you?
First thing comes to my mind is the protection. My dad was, if you had him in your corner, you never had to worry about having an ally. You never had to worry about, being out here on your own. You always stood firm in the protection of the family, I never really thought, Karen, that I was much like him until someone told me who was close to me, "You're just like your dad." "No, I'm not. I'm not like my dad." He said, "Yeah, you are. You're like your dad." I'm like, because we would bump heads as I got older, a little bit. He's a Leo and I was a Taurus, and you did, but as Janet told me, she said, "Yeah, you are. You're just like your dad. If you're in there in your corner of circle of friendship, as we refer to, you won't let anything or anybody penetrate that if you feel that they're going to do some harm or do something that for people that you have in your corner." And I thought about that for a while. I'm like, yeah, I am like that. I'm either with you or I'm not. It's just, and that's how he was. A very protective person of the family. Me, my mom, all the time. And so I learned to just embrace that portion about it, because yeah, it's true. And I don't struggle with that anymore.
So you've kind of taken that on that he had. And
Yeah, I had without even thinking about it. A lot of my friends, and like I said, Janet brought that up to me, and the reason I say I was indifferent about it because he was so black and white, matter of fact, and I think I wanted to be a little bit more, less than, not less than that, but those words I'm trying to think, more open, and part of that I did adapt to with Jana, because we're complete opposites in personality types, and she hates this definition. I'm an A type, as most people in sales and marketing are, and she's an I, which is opposite. She said, "No, I'm not," but she's more well-rounded. So as they say, opposites attract, I think that's why, we made a good partnership. So I didn't want to identify so much as my dad and looking at him, because I thought I was a little bit more open than he was initially. But when I really thought about it, and years passed since I've just embraced it, I am. I mean, if where I stand when you walk in a room. Everybody knows that about me.
so how is it different? Or like, what's your relationship? How has it changed from having little kids to grown kids?
Well, I mean, now, like you say, they are adults. I can have conversations with them that, and I'll tell you the other part about it, we've had open conversations throughout the time, but, now it's more like, okay, you're on your own now, taking responsibility for yourself, and we can open conversations about everything, and that started, earlier on, in their, late teens into their 20s and whatnot. Jen and I had an agreement that, anything that was to be brought up in a conversation was deserved to be talked about. Whereas in my era, oh no, you didn't learn about those type of conversations, have those type of intimate conversations or any subject matter, with your parents, maybe later on. But so we've always had an open line of communication. Just tell me, what's going on, so I know exactly what we're dealing with. And you have the opportunity to do that, and again, Janet taught me that, let them talk. If you want them to talk to you, then you can't be judgmental about the subject matter. Let them speak, and you'll gain more information on what's going on in their lives than you will if you start to judge them about what the subject matter is. So it's kind of been an open book, and I'll tell you, it's like, boom, okay, I bought into this, I guess I, have to stand by my word and listen to what they're saying. But I think that developed a opportunity for them to feel comfortable about any subject matter that they needed to talk about. And who best to talk about than, with someone that they grew up with,
That's great. And then, so what's the difference for you in being a parent versus a grandparent?
I didn't know, just like I didn't know about parenthood. As they say, you don't know until you're there. Same thing about a grandparent. It's another level of this appreciation. Because when your child comes into the world and you see them, it's immediate attachment. Russell Wilson said it. It's been said before that it's just somebody, boom, you immediately just you're in love with. You do anything for. Immediate attachment is it's no skipping a beat. Well, being a grandparent is that next level. but it has some great benefits to it. Not that they're with you all the time, but when you see them, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And Papa, being called Papa, it's like, wow, every time I hear that, it's like, wow, now I'm at that level of where I have grandkids, and it's like I say, it's just another level, Karen, of that connection.
Mm. And what is like your legacy or wisdom that you would like to hand down, not just to your grandchildren, but great grandchildren? What wisdom would you like to hand down?
Let me see. I have come at different phases in our life, as we all do, and I think the one that I've really embraced the most is keep an open mind. I actually, through Unity, there was a woman that came to speak about intuition, and I've gotten into a lot of the law of attraction, which has helped me decide what side of the fence I want to be. I mean, am I going to be drawn toward diversity? I mean, not so much adversity, but negativity, or do I want to err on the positive side? And my kids hear me talk about that a lot. What you think about, you bring about. And what direction do you really want to go in? I think that if I was going to leave a legacy with them, is that always make the error to follow your heart, honesty to yourself as well as the people around you, keep an open mind, and I think as my word for this year on my little tablet there was balance. And when you talk about balance, there's a large, area in which you kind of have to view that. What you think about, you bring about. What you give, you get in return. I think just basic laws of living. It's kind of hard to put in words, because I'm reaching for different things that I've learned, that I've passed on, and a lot of them has been just them being around me, and looking for that, finding that balance, in life.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for being with us today. And
thank you for the opportunity, Karen.
All right. Okay, so I'd like to introduce Karl Tegtmeyer. He is living down in Burien right now with his wife, Andy, and they have 2 children. How old are your kids now?
So Zachary is 7 and Madeline is 5.
Wow. Do you feel like it's going fast?
It's going very fast, definitely.
So what was your biggest surprise about being a parent that you didn't expect?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think one of the biggest surprises is that you don't get a chance to turn it off. You're always on. So whether that's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning, there's no clock that you get to punch in or punch out.
What's been the biggest blessing in having children?
I think one of the biggest things that we've noticed is as they started to get older, now they're a little over 5 and 7, you could start to see some of the human things come out through them. So some of the characteristics like helping others or taking care of a sibling or doing something that's really nice for one of us as parents. So getting the chance to really connect with them and see how they begin to grow is pretty rewarding.
And then how is like your parenting and Andy's parenting different from like your dad and mom?
I think this is actually probably more of a trend from this generation of parenting. I think parenting from our parents, my parents and Andy's parents, tended to be more hands-off, and where you dad and mom were there as a kind of a life support and not really a friend. I think parenting has become more of a friend dynamic, which has its ups and downs because first and foremost, you have to be a parent and not a friend. So I think the lines have blurred between being a friend and being a parent. And I think sometimes that can be challenging because your kids always want to be and doing stuff with you rather than maybe playing or exploring on their own.
So what does it mean to be a friend to your child?
I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. Lately, it has meant allowing them to use their tablets whenever they wanted, which doesn't go so well. So I think, honestly, I think we're still trying to figure that out because the situation in our country and in the world has created an environment where it's almost fearful now to let your kids go out and play on their own. I think being a friend has had to take some of that co-playing with other kids away. And so we've had to spend more time just with them as a playmate. I think that's where it's showing up the most right now. But I'll let you know in 10 years where that has filled in.
So do you feel like your family is closer because of the pandemic?
Yeah, I do actually. As far as Andy, my wife having to stay home and not work as much, it's allowed us to kind of provide some new family routines, such as a more focused approach on contributing to the family, taking care of the house, just slowing down a little bit, not going to different activities every day of the week. And so we do feel a bit, if maybe not closer, but definitely more aware of each other's style and how things have impacted one another. I think the ability for our kids to work through challenges is possibly being a little better instead of, the screaming and shouting, which still does occur, but, they've begun to figure out how to work with one another a little bit better. And so I think that there have been some really nice positives from that.
So let's shift a little bit to your dad. So what is it that you appreciate about your own dad and maybe any wisdom that he's passed on to you?
One of the things I really appreciated about my dad was he was always there for me, and he always put his kids in front of what he wanted. And I think that's a hard thing for me personally because I'm very self-focused. And so, showing and putting my other people in my life that are ahead of me is a challenging dilemma for me. And so I always really appreciated that from my dad, was that he was never hesitant to sacrifice from his own wants or desires to allow us as kids to get what we wanted.
And he's still alive, right? Your dad?
Yeah, he is. Both my parents are still alive. Yep.
So you see him or Zoom him anyway.
Normally, yeah, we saw him just at Christmas, and then we talked to them pretty frequently over the video chats.
So what would you like to pass on, not only to your kids, but to your grandkids and your great grandkids? What wisdom would you like to pass down to them?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think something that Andy and I are realizing that we're trying to pass on is providing a space for kids to be kids in today's society is hard because there's a lot of competing priorities from school, from social, from many different avenues. And I think what we're realizing is providing a little bit of a security blanket around the noise is really helpful, and will probably just continue to permeate their lives as they grow up, and if they have kids, they may have the same challenges. But I think for us, I would when I speak, I would really like my kids to understand if they have kids, to really provide that space for them to be, for their kids to enjoy and have fun, not have to worry about anything, because you don't get to do that as an adult.
Right. So anything else you'd like to add? Any insights, stories, reflections?
I think the one thing that I have also realized is, it doesn't have to necessarily be a biological father that can provide father-like wisdom. I think there's other people in the community that you can find, whether it's an in-law or an older support mentor. Those are all great resources that can show father-like advice. And I think we don't do a good enough job of taking advantage of that in our community, and at least in a society. And parents are expected to be everything nowadays, as well as spouses. And I don't think you can do that effectively. And you know, I really believe in the kind of it takes a village to raise a child, and I think we're losing a little bit of that. And so we're trying to expose our kids to people that, you know, we believe are good role models and influences on them. And because you can't do it all on your own as a parent, and obviously a father and a mother are key parts of that. But, you know, certain stages of their lives, they don't look to us for how the world works. They look to other people and their peers. So, you know, those are things that as parents, Annie and I are trying to establish and build the foundation for our kids to, when they do want to push away, are in the right hands to help them learn about the world.
Yeah, this is different than like when we used to have extended families all around us with lots of aunts and uncles and cousins and neighbors and we stuff. But it is different now. We are kind of more alone and isolated. In some of the ways.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a really, you know, we live in a pretty nice community, but it's, you know, no one really knows each other very well. But, you know, growing up, my parents and my dad's, or my wife's parents, you know, there was definitely the multi-generational family element that helped raise a family. And I think, you know, we've lost a little bit of that, and that could be, I see that as maybe a detriment so far. So.
Cool. Well, I don't have any other questions, so thank you. See,
all right.
Painless.
That was easy. I love it.
All right. So now I'd like to introduce George Edwards. He's currently serving as our board treasurer. He is a father and a grandfather. So thank you, George, for being with us. So first of all, how many children do you have?
Well, I have one child, and my wife Kathy has 3, and we've been married for 30 years. So we claim that we have 4 children and therefore 11 grandchildren.
Great. So think back before you had children. What was your biggest surprise that you didn't expect? You know, like, you know how like when you're thinking about having kids and then you actually have them, what's the difference in the reality versus the fantasy?
Oh, wow. Good question. You know, I think what really hit me was how different it was between having children and having grandchildren. And, you know, there's a lot of, at least in our family, there was a lot of push and pull in parenting. But there's bliss in being a grandfather and having grandchildren. And one hopes that one can live long enough to see them, your grandchildren, establish these wonderful lives of service and fulfillment. So, yeah, I guess I was amazed how often difficult parenting can be and how absolutely wonderful and rewarding.
You have a unique relationship with your grandchildren. I know that you see them all separately and do separate things with them. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, we are lucky that most of our grandchildren live in Seattle, and then we have one outlier that lives in New Zealand. And we've, I think, made 2 determinations in our lives that the best gift we can give our grandchildren is an education. So we've established some funds that helps provide and either supplements to their education or pays tuition for them, particularly college tuition. And the other thing is we've always thought that experiences were one of the most important things we could give our grandchildren. So when every one of our grandchildren turns 12, we take them on a trip of their choosing. And it's got to be a place that they probably wouldn't go with their parents. Like, we're not going to Disneyland 11 times. So we let them pick, and they've made interesting selections. They've been to Washington, D.C. They've been to New York City. And we have a couple of twins, so that's made it easier than we thought. And we still have a couple of trips to go. Our kids in New Zealand, we have twin grandsons in New Zealand, and we said, okay, you can pick any place. And I wasn't quite aware of the geography, even though I've been there like 13 times. And they decided they wanted to go to Tahiti. And I was like, no, you can go to Tahiti on your honeymoon, but we're not going there for your 12-year-old trip. So we instead took them to Tasmania and had a great time. But it's a great way to get to know your grandchildren. You know, we always say that our grandchildren are much different with us than they are with their parents. And that's always been our case in getting to spend a week with our grandchildren away from this. And, you know, we've gone on a lot of other family adventures. So that's been great fun.
So how are you a different father or grandfather than your father was?
Oh, wow. Well, my father had a sixth grade education, and he grew up literally working with his hands his entire life. He came back from the Second World War with a steel plate in his head. So he had two great pieces of parenting advice to me, or just general advice. One was duck, which
Duck?
duck, yeah. Every encounter I ever had in a negative way, it was always like, well, you probably should have ducked. And the other, I think when I was like 9 or 10 years old, he said, basically, and this was important, if you're old enough to go to school, you're old enough to fix your own lunch. And that was an important moment. I think I passed that on to all my kids. They've never forgiven me for making them fix their own lunch when they went to school, and they told me how horrible it was, and what they really wanted was for somebody to fix their lunch for them. However, I noticed that all 11 grandchildren fix their own lunch to go to school. So I don't know, that's the wisdom. But I think that my father, because he worked the way he did, wasn't very involved in my life. He had his life, and he was, you know, his idea was just to financially provide for the family. And I think that's one thing that I've done differently. I think I've been lucky enough to be involved in the lives of all of my children, and certainly all my grandchildren, and in a very tangible way, and be there for their games and their events and those types of things.
So what advice do you have about being a good dad or a good grandfather?
Oh, I wouldn't be presumptuous enough to give any parenting advice. I spent my entire career in education, and was always amazed how readily my advice was ignored by all parents at all times.
Now's your opportunity.
Yeah, now's my opportunity. You know, I think I would have much more a philosophical understanding about being a grandparent. I walked into some big institution of higher learning, into the trustee boardroom, and I saw a little plaque there that stayed with me that basically said, being a trustee is to hold this institution in trust, not for your children, but for your grandchildren. And I've always liked that. I think that we as grandparents should hold in trust institutions, our country, our world, for our grandchildren. And I think that's one of the, about the only piece of philosophical advice I have, to hold in trust what we have, and make sure that we pass it on in some usable function to our children, our grandchildren.
So that may follow with my next question. You might have already answered it, but what wisdom would you like to hand down to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and those that follow you?
You know, it's not about being happy. It's about finding lives of service. And it only took me about 50 years to understand that. I'm not sure I still totally grasp it, but I think that finding meaningful service to others is one of the most enriching part of any person's life. And that's the wisdom I would like to pass on to my children and grandchildren.
And how has that shown up in your life? Meaningful service.
Well, I went into the military at a very early age, and they were foolish enough to give me responsibility over small groups of people. And that was a real learning experience for me. And then I spent, most of my career in education, working with with children, and on many occasions, their parents entrusting those children to me. And I think that's played out in my later life by being real involved in a variety of different service work and nonprofit boards and a small family foundation that works with nonprofits. So I think I found some of my most rewarding moments in life, not in the honors I won or the promotions I achieved, but in actually helping other people in other organizations. It's so inspiring to see a small group of people come together and want to change the world. And I've been lucky enough to see that and support those efforts. So, yeah.
And then, so this, again, some of these questions are similar, but what's been your biggest joy or your biggest surprise in being a grandparent and parent?
Wow. It all sounds so trite, but, I've already talked a bit about the joys of being a grandparent. It also amazes me how quickly time passes, and that is a excruciating truism that at 72 I'm beginning to, I think, fully understand. I think the other thing that surprises me about parenting and grandparenting is how little control you can have, and how, if you did it right, you see some of the values and tradition in your children and grandchildren that you didn't really even understand that you were passing on to them. It's like osmosis or something. I don't know, but it's just like, making your lunch for school story. I don't know how that happens, but somehow it happens, and it's, hindsight is perfect in the rearview mirror. And yeah, I guess that's some of the things that's surprised me about it.
And then last question is, how has spirituality or God shown up for you as father?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I probably won't do it justice. I had I had a successful career, and usually in positions where I was expected to have answers to questions. And I think as I pursued my career and rose in the ranks, I think I increasingly understood that I didn't have a lot of answers. And I think I've told you, my spiritual journey began in a tiny little Unity church in Huntsville, Alabama. And I was having a particularly difficult time in my professional life with a whole series of difficult decisions that had to be made. And I found a peace in that little church, and through my awakening, very slow awakening of my spiritual journey. And in that, I found some peace and comfort.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity for me to spout off, I guess. I don't know.
So I appreciate your joining us this morning. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Well, thank you for considering it wisdom. My children never did.
Good morning, Seattle Unity. I'm Scott Caldwell. It's nice to be with you, even though it's virtual. And this is the time in our service where we get to give. We get to close the circle of giving and receiving and practice the spiritual art of giving. So I invite you in this moment to take your gift and hold it in your heart, in your mind, and see it going forth back into this community from which we have all received so much. See it flowing generously and effortlessly to feed our community, to feed each other, to support all the good work that happens here on behalf of all of us. We see it going forth We are grateful for your generosity of money and time and energy, all those things that make this community work. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so it is. I want to remind you in this time of meeting virtually that even though we don't have the basket going around, there are 3 easy, safe, reliable ways that you can still support Seattle Unity financially. The first is you can go to the website and click on the donate button, and there will be directions there to show you how to donate through the website. Second, you can text your gift. You can text the word give to the number that's on the bottom of the screen. And when you do that, prompts will appear that show you how to text a gift electronically. And third, which I encourage you to think about if you don't already do, I like to give through the Breeze portal, the church database. And they have a place there where you can set up a recurring, regular donation. One that comes, again, easily, effortlessly from your bank account to the church bank account. It's reliable, it's safe, it's predictable. And the only time I really have to think about it is when we put a blessing on it. So it just happens easily and effortlessly. So I encourage you to think about that if you don't already give that way. And again, for all the giving that you give, whether it's financial, whether it's time and energy, we are grateful and we are thankful. Thank you. And now, let us close with our prayer for protection. As we begin this prayer, I invite you to hold in your heart our planet, our country, our city, your neighborhood, this spiritual community, your friends, your family, all the people that are near and dear to you. And I invite you to hold them in your heart as we spread over all of it our prayer for protection. Let us say it together. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am present. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And until we see each other again in the flesh, be safe, be well. Thank you.